1, Niner, 4, 3, dead.
Get in position and wait for my go.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Erkley and welcome to another edition of the PE Crime Blotter, a weekly look at crime around the Inland Empire. We begin with crime headlines. 2 Hemet men remain behind bars after an 80-mile-an-hour car chase in Riverside ended Friday, with officers wounding one of the men. Gunfire riddled a 2004 Toyota pickup truck that officers had tried to stop because of its expired registration tags. Officials say officers wounded the driver, 33-year-old parolee James Chad Horton, after he drove into a police car and repeatedly rammed it. His passenger, 36-year-old John Eddie Walton, was wanted on arrest warrants, charging him with weapons violations and being a felon in possession of a firearm. Officials say a 5-year-old who was snatched from his San Jacinto daycare provider last Thursday was found safe in Idlewild a day later, and his father was arrested on suspicion of kidnapping. Dominic Smith was reunited with his mother some 17 hours after the abduction. A merchant in Idlewild called 911 after spotting Dominic and his father, Anthony Smith Dixon, in a gold Saturn that had been broadcast in an Amber Alert. A Riverside County Sheriff's deputy shot and killed a Hemet area man whose girlfriend said he had shot her last Tuesday. Officials say a woman called 911 about 6 p.m. Tuesday, reporting her boyfriend had shot her in the head with a rifle after beating her and threatening to cut her throat with a piece of broken glass. Deputies found the man hiding behind a bush in the backyard of a home a few miles away. When deputies ordered him to drop the rifle he was holding, officials say he, quote, raised the rifle in a threatening manner. A deputy shot the man once, and CAL FIRE and AMR paramedics gave first aid at the scene and took him to the hospital where he later died. Police continue to look for 2 men who attempted to kidnap a 15-year-old girl last week in a neighborhood just east of the Riverside Municipal Airport. The girl was walking to school in the area of Phoenix Avenue and Esmeralda Way when the 2 men pulled up in a dark blue van and pulled her inside. She began kicking, punching, and screaming, managing to free herself and run away. Police released a composite sketch of one of the men involved and asked that anyone with information about the incident call police at 951-787-7911. A crime that outraged the community had a happy ending when Inland Empire residents pitched in to buy a Moreno Valley woman a new wheelchair. The wheelchair of 41-year-old developmentally disabled woman Michaela Wright was stolen out of her driveway. That prevented her from going to an independent living center. But residents donated more than $3,000 so the Wrights could buy a custom-built wheelchair. Well, that does it for this week's crime headlines. Up next, our cold case segment. It is now time for our cold case segment. Joining us now is the Press Enterprise's John Asbury. John, we're taking a look at a case that happened exactly a year ago to this day, the murder of 23-year-old Carrie Thomas in Moreno Valley at the Vistera Credit Union.
Right. On Sunday, March 27th, 2011, police said Carrie Thomas went to the credit union just before midnight to withdraw money she had planned to lease a new home with her boyfriend. When she got there, they said a man was waiting for her with a gun, pulled it, robbed her, and shot her several times, causing her to crash into a light post. The only tip police have so far is a grainy ATM photo that captured the man as he was fleeing the scene, but otherwise authorities are fresh out of clues and are hoping for somebody to come forward.
Yeah, pretty much everything that's been possible has been done. Vistera's offered up $25,000. The family's thrown up a billboard. There's been a lot of activity by both the family and Vistera, but not a lot of results.
Right, and you know the family and Moreno Valley have taken this case particularly hard. Carrie was an assistant manager at Shakey's Pizza in Moreno Valley and had a lot of interaction with the community. And everyone who she came in contact with said she was just full of life, had a sunny disposition, and really had an effect on anybody who she came in contact with.
Now, John, if anyone who sees the picture of the suspect or may know any type of information about the case, where can they call?
Right. Authorities are asking anybody with information to call either Moreno Valley Police at 951-486-6700 or the Riverside County Central Homicide Unit is 951-955-2777.
All right, John, thanks for joining us. That does it for our cold case segment. Coming up next, crime initiatives. All right, it is now time for our crime initiatives segment. Joining us now, the Press Enterprise's Steve Barry. Steve, police are asking for the public's help in 2 bank robberies here in Riverside. The first one, March 9th on Arlington Avenue.
Yes, on March 9th, a man walked into the Premier Services Bank in the 3600 block of Arlington and walked up to a teller, put a note down on the table demanding a certain amount of cash. Police have never said exactly how much he got away with. The teller looked at the note, hesitated for only a brief second, then very composedly reached down into her cash drawer and came up with a couple of bundles of cash, gave the man the money, and he walked out. You can see the teller trying to get the attention of perhaps a security guard or bank officials as he's leaving. Witnesses say he got into a light-colored van, perhaps tan, and drove away, and that's basically the last they've seen of him.
Then our second robbery involving a different suspect. That one was on March 20th at the Canyon Crest Town Center.
Yes, that was at the BBVA Compass branch there at the town center. In this instance, a man in a blue jacket and a very prominent straw hat, wide-brimmed, walked into the bank and asked the teller for money. And again, the teller complied. The man was last seen walking north through the bank parking lot and toward the Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurant.
Steve, if anyone has any type of information on either of these robberies, where can they call?
They should call the main number of the Riverside Police Department. That's 951-787-7911, and ask for the Detective Bureau.
All right, Steve, thanks for joining us. That does it for our crime initiative segment. Up next on the docket. All right, it is now time for our On the Docket segment. We're taking a look at the big court cases in both Riverside and San Bernardino County this week. Joining us now, as always, the Press Enterprise's Rich Diatley. Rich, the first case many people are probably familiar with happened just about a year ago involving a Cathedral City police officer in a fatal pursuit. The officer was from Beaumont.
That's right. Durjan Jermaine Gray is the person accused. He is from Desert Hot Springs. In March 2011, there was a high-speed chase that began, as you said, in Cathedral City, ended in Palm Springs with a fiery crash. Police officer Jermaine Gibson died in that crash. At the preliminary hearing, fellow officers described their unsuccessful attempts to rescue him from his burning patrol car. Gray is now due back in court April 5th. We expect to get a trial date and an arraignment on the preliminary hearing charges at that time.
Next, a man in San Bernardino court this week charged with murder and arson in the 2003 fire.
Right, the old fire, and it's Ricky Lee Fowler. It's a death penalty case. He's charged with 5 of the 6 deaths, heart attack deaths actually, that occurred during that fire, that huge fire in San Bernardino County in 2003. This case has had a lot of ups and downs, including Fowler at one point saying he would like to plead guilty and then withdrawing that. There's a change of venue hearing in late May, and trial is now set for sometime in early June.
And finally, in Riverside Court this week, a Moreno Valley man for a 1992 murder.
Right. Leonard Woods was arrested last October. It is, as you said, a 1992 cold case. Judith Goodman, she lived in the La Sierra neighborhood of Riverside, was found bound and strangled. Woods has been linked to that by DNA. His next hearing is April 3rd.
All right, Rich, thanks for joining us. Be sure to keep us updated on the latest developments in these cases. That does it for this edition of On the Docket, and also wraps up this week's PE Crime Blotter. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.